I think Disney is struggling with that by and large. They're trying to give us these villain stories, but they're not really willing to let them be villainous. And that's kind of still my main problem with Maleficent, is it's so deliciously good. That opening scene, the coronation scene is so good. Like, oh, that is amazing. And Angelina Jolie just eats that scene up, and it's so good. And I wish we had a little bit longer with that energy in Maleficent.
Well, well.
Hey everyone, it's Jonathan, and today we're finally talking about Disney's live-action remake of Sleeping Beauty, Maleficent. Today I'm joined by Trivial Theater, who also joined me for the episode on Disney's original Sleeping Beauty. That was one of her favorites growing up, so I was curious to know how she would feel about the quote-unquote live-action remake. I like to think of this one in particular as more of a complete reimagining than a live-action remake. And then we are also joined by Larry Chilson, who I knew for sure would have a more favorable outlook on Maleficent than a lot of other Disney purists I know, especially given the masterful performance of Angelina Jolie as Maleficent. Next time we'll be back to talk about the 2019 sequel, Maleficent, Mistress of Evil, but until then, here are Larry and Nicki to talk about the original 2014 film, Maleficent. So I guess to start out with, it has been kind of hard to find people who want to talk about the Disney live action remakes, but I feel like this is one of the ones that some people kind of like. Because, even the people that didn't really want to do a podcast said, yeah, I like that one, but I don't know what I could say about it. So I think we'll have a variety of opinions about it, but overall, how do you guys each feel about this one?
I have a not complicated. I have, for anything Disney live action, I kind of go in very kind of wary just
Hmm.
because so many of them, they feel so unnecessary.
Yeah.
But then, sometimes I am pleasantly surprised. I live for those moments because it reinforces that there are people behind the scenes that do really care and they take the time to do it. And obviously, with time comes a little bit of, more perspective and such. The first time I saw Maleficent, I'm not gonna lie, I was more mad than I should have been. But Sleeping Beauty was always like my Disney movie. Like, I adored it. It was the one that I grew up with and I loved more than anything else. So to see it portrayed that way was really difficult. But having watched it a couple of times for this, it is much better than I gave it credit for. They take the mythos and they had fun with it. They really flipped it on its head. They did a perfect kind of what if.
Yeah.
If you look at it from the perspective that isn't, I guess, the fairies or however you wanted to play that. So it has its flaws, but looking at it now versus at the time, I really enjoy it.
I think I'm generally in the same boat, actually. When I first watched it, I actually remember coming out of the theater pretty disappointed by it. But the further I got from it and then doing the rewatches, because I've seen it, a few times since the theaters, obviously, I think overall it's actually a pretty solid film once you're able to just watch it. It's like it's well made. It builds its own, as you said, kind of mythos well. And so that's part of the problem with these Disney live action remakes is they're inherently setting themselves up for comparison. Like there's just no way out of it. Going in with some kind of expectation, you already have your own personal background with these projects. So they just set themselves up for disappointment in the
Absolutely.
nature of them existing.
Hmm.
Um, Maleficent also, though, had such a good marketing campaign. Like that's one of the things I remember is the marketing for this film was so good. I thought the trailers looked really good. Obviously, we had that Lana Del Rey dark remix of Once Upon
Hmm.
a Dream
Yeah.
that
Oh
took
yeah.
off, that was like everywhere. And it all set the tone. Angelina Jolie, I'll still stand by, is one of the best castings they've done for
Yeah.
any of these films. I mean, it was a perfect casting for Maleficent with Angelina Jolie. That everything leading up to the film, I personally was like, this looks so good. So I was still so excited for it. And it was one of the earlier ones, so you weren't quite as jaded when Maleficent came out against the live action trend yet. And unlike so many of the others, it wasn't a remake per se. It wasn't just telling us the same story, but in live action form. It was at least giving us a new perspective, a new idea compared to the other ones. So there was a
Hmm.
lot working for it. It was that expectation though of it giving me a new perspective. I think that also played against it because I really wanted a villain movie. Like that's what I went in here for, a Maleficent movie with the idea of Maleficent from Sleeping Beauty. And we only get that for like the first, what, 15 minutes? It's only a villain for the opening scene. And then she quickly turns into kind of anti-hero and then full-on hero. So you're kind of like, oh, okay, we're not letting her be a villain at all by the end of this thing. But and I've wanted, and if John hasn't mentioned it, we'll be talking about another villain story, the three of us, soon.
Mhm.
And I think that film also struggles with that. I think Disney is struggling with that by and large. They're trying to give us these villain stories, but they're not really willing to let them be villainous as much as
Hmm.
I would like. And that's kind of still my main problem with Maleficent, is it's so deliciously good. That opening scene, the coronation scene is
Oh
so
yeah.
good. Like, oh, that is amazing. And Angelina Jolie just eats that scene up, and it's so good. And I wish we had a little bit longer with that energy in Maleficent.
Yeah. When this first came out, I feel like what everybody has been feeling for a decade, like the jaded against the Disney live action remake, that didn't hit me until Pinocchio. So when the,
Oh,
what, like for most of them, like even The Lion King, I went in, I was like, this isn't good, but it's not as bad as everyone says. Like it's fine. And I don't feel like I ever need to watch it again, but like it's fine. And so for Maleficent, I was still in the, yeah, I'm excited to see a new version of this. So I liked it when it came out, and it was also at the point in time where I hadn't gotten sick of villain redemption stories yet, because I've always loved a good villain redemption story. Like anytime you have a villain who turns good by the end, like I thought that's one of my favorite tropes, or it was. It's kind of been done to death now, and I'm kind of tired of it. So when this first came out, I enjoyed it, I think more than most people. And I look at it more as because like a lot of the disappointment I think came from the fact that this was Sleeping Beauty and people were looking for the Sleeping Beauty story from Disney's Sleeping Beauty and they weren't getting that. I look at it as just another version of Sleeping Beauty. Like yes, it borrows heavily from the Disney imagery, but for the most part, it's kind of a just another Sleeping Beauty, but with the added twist of the evil fairy is actually a good fairy, but she was made evil and then she turned good again. So I like the choices that they made. I think they aren't all great. There's some things in this that grated on me, namely the Flora,
fairies.
Fauna, and Merryweather, who in name only, like not even in name only, they changed their names. They're totally different fairies, and they are very annoying.
Yes.
They're like my least favorite thing in this whole thing.
I would agree. And there is that thing about, okay, you're telling the story from the someone else's perspective. You do want to make sure that it's different enough where it stands apart while still hitting those key beats.
Hmm.
And I could see the kind of dumb that they played into with these fairies, like when they first got the baby. I mean, that's anyone that's babysat or been a parent or whatever when you're talking little kids. But the amount of dumb that they retain to the day of her 16th birthday, I tell you,
Aurora would have literally died if Maleficent hadn't been there as her like guardian angel or whatever.
I mean, she literally would have had to been there like by her bedside the entire time. Because
Yeah.
yeah, changing I just got thinking, you don't know how to feed a baby. What about changing their diaper or burping them? Like all of these like little things. And I know that's not the point of the movie, but like like you say, there's no way she would have survived.
I think that that was the thing when I first saw it and still now that I dislike the most about this movie. Because like in the original Sleeping Beauty, And I know I'm trying not to compare them too much, but like in the original, they're like the best characters. They're like the main characters of the original Sleeping Beauty, which I've always thought is great. Like three little old ladies who are like the heroes. But in this movie, they're basically too dumb to live. They're so dumb, and it just annoys me so much that it kind of drags down the rest of the movie. Not enough that I dislike the movie, because for the most part, I do still like this movie. Like Angelina Jolie, like you said, she was perfect casting, and I love everything she does. She's so great in this role. It
She
makes me
is.
it makes me forgive the things that I don't like.
And you know it's at least somewhat successful when you completely create a new iconic look for a character that already had an iconic look. Like it's
Hmm.
similar, obviously, to the old Maleficent look because duh. But this kind of became the new Maleficent Halloween costume. You know, like the Angelina Jolie look kind of became the new Maleficent look for at least quite some time. And
Especially
I
with
would
those
say it stands up
wings.
right there. Yeah.
The
Yeah.
wings are so cool.
And they almost have their own, at least in this, they kind of have their own identity too. Like they have their own kind of arc, which is cool.
Yeah.
No, but even the fairies don't even look good. Like the CG on
No.
them is
Ugh.
weird. Like where's we have a live action here with Snow White with horrible looking like nightmare fuel creatures and the dwarves. The fairies
Hmm.
aren't quite that bad, but they look so uncanny with these like human heads. Oh no, I don't. Everything about the three fairies is legitimately the worst part of the film. I agree.
What did you think of the other creatures besides the fairies? Like the little, I don't even know what they are, the little pig elephant things and the other flower people and all the little weird creatures in the forest.
I don't think they bugged me in this version. They did bug me in the next version, but obviously we'll get to that. There was a lot of creativity in the creation of them. Like they didn't look a lot like other fantasy creatures that you saw out there.
Hmm.
Though the pig frog things kind of reminded me of, was it Watto from
Oh, yeah, maybe a little.
like someone looked at that and said, "Hmm, what if we turn this into a frog?"
Yeah, I didn't love the creatures. Like they were fine, and I liked some of the designs, but like I feel like this with a bunch of things. Like if they had been practical effects, if they had been puppets, I think I would have liked them
Mm.
a lot
No.
more. Because there was some legitimately good designs in there. Like even some that you barely see. Like there's these weird fairies that you get like one scene that walk around on like crab legs. It's like this is so bizarre. I love the imagination behind this, but the CG is just at that perfectly imperfect uncanny valley that I just don't love it.
Yeah. Um, I like the trees the best, which is probably the most stereotypical fantasy thing they did here. But
Mhm.
the like tree creatures are probably my favorite creature of the Maleficent films.
I wish we would have seen more of the like the warriors from the very open or from the battle that they had. Like there were so many interesting takes, like the kind of sea serpent one
Yeah.
and some of those, but
I remember watching it and thinking it was an odd choice at first. How do we feel about the sexual assault allegory of Maleficent?
oh God, yeah. And I don't think it hit me when I initially watched it
I don't think it
because
did me either.
you look at this, you look at Sleeping Beauty, the original, you look at Snow White. The character falling asleep is kind of in universe for some of those. But yeah, the idea of this specifically, especially if you're looking at it from the fact that this would have been more of a teenage or adult kind of film. Not that it was specifically meant to be, but that definitely comes across. So, yeah, it was I don't know, it's that weird time with Disney, like kind of that mid-teens stuff just kind of was weird with some of their stuff.
I did like though, I will say. So obviously a big gripe of the original, this is one of those where Disney is retroactively updating their things. But I think this is one, obviously, especially right after Frozen, they do kind of the same thing here that they did in Frozen of like female friend or sisterly love,
Oh, the true
relationship
love's
love,
kiss. Yes.
the true love's kiss. So this comes right after Frozen, which did it, and then this does it again. But it's kind of retroactively. addressing a complaint people have of old Disney films, which is like she literally did not know this prince. Like what? She met this prince one time and suddenly it's like true love's kiss and it's him. I personally liked it in this film. With Maleficent being the one, like you get the big build up to the prince kissing her and then nothing happens and you're just like sitting there. And it's Maleficent's kiss that ends up bringing it. And I think that was one aspect that did work well is that they spent the whole movie building up their relationship together that
Hmm.
even when they get mad, even when she finds out, you know, like what Maleficent actually did and the curse and all that, um it's like their core relationship so that they do that like kind of wise out here. I actually thought that worked really well. And it's one of the times where Disney addressing one of the old films worked for me because a lot of times it doesn't. They try to address problems, quote unquote problems from their old properties in these live action films that you're like either one didn't need addressing or two is being wildly misinterpreted to
Hmm.
readdress
Yeah.
that you're like no that's not what are you talking about. Jasmine always had autonomy and was always a pretty independent female character including in the original Aladdin. What why are we saying we need to update Jasmine? What or or Belle. I remember like that press tour was like updating Belle to be a, you know, a modern woman. It's like Belle of all characters, we're saying she needs to be more headstrong and independent. Are you kidding? Have you watched Beauty and the Beast? But this is one where, you know, being a black-hearted pessimist that I am, it always was with Sleeping Beauty. Like, okay, Sleeping Beauty literally has 5 minutes of screen time in her own film. The movie's named after her, and she falls asleep immediately, and we don't hear from her again until the very end of the movie. So I at least enjoyed that we got more time with Aurora before the event takes
Yes.
place,
Yeah.
and I enjoyed that they did build up the relationship that actually has payoff in the end for the true love's kiss.
With this one, like I'm now watching a whole bunch of Sleeping Beauty versions for every version ever. I think this is by far the most screen time that Sleeping Beauty has ever gotten, and the movie's not named after her. Like every other version that I've watched so far, she's at best a side character, if not just mostly off screen for the whole thing as a quest for the prince.
I even think the way that they do the kiss and such, like it's almost it's not an afterthought because it is still a pretty vital part of that of the movie, but it's almost because your climax actually comes after the kiss and such. That's kind of a neat thing where it's talked about, they do it, and then they move on to the next thing.
Hmm. Yeah, the whole Sleeping Beauty part of this is not that it's an afterthought, but it's such a minor part of the movie almost, because the
Mm.
movie is more about the relationship between Maleficent and Aurora, and then the aftermath after she's already awake, because she's not even asleep for that long.
It's more of a beauty nap than anything, cat nap or whatever.
Yeah, napping beauty.
Get me 5 more minutes, mom, beauty.
Now, this was kind of the start. They do this with, obviously, they did this most recently, I'd say, with Ursula and her spell in The Little Mermaid. But they kind of started here with Maleficent. I don't think they needed to water down the spell she puts on Aurora, though. I was like, oh, she's only kind of evil, even in this evil scene. Like, see,
Yeah,
they needed, she doesn't want to kill Aurora. It's just like a slumber. Or I forget the exact wording, but they like toned down even the spell she puts on baby Aurora. But I'm like, oh, come on. We didn't need to change that. Let her be diabolical right now, at least.
the only thing, like, because I had forgotten how toned down it was until I watched it for this podcast, and then the only thing I can think of is that, I mean, the fairies are literally too dumb to live. Do you think that they could have come up with a way to fix this on their own?
I guess.
Because,
Chances
like,
aren't good.
in all the other versions, it's another fairy that has to come in and fix the spell after Maleficent or the Maleficent character has cursed the baby. But these fairies, they're so dumb. I
But I
don't know
guess
that
that's
they
a
would have been
solid
able to
point.
figure it out
Aurora would be
themselves.
dead. Gone, dead
Yeah.
and gone.
Within
16, it's
days.
over.
Yeah.
But honestly, with these fairies, yeah, in these fairies though, 16 years of life actually is a godsend. Like she literally was cursed with a terminal illness known as fairy godmothers, taking care of her. That was her 16-year ticking time clock.
Well, I think too, when you're talking Disney, especially in a modern context, there is that very, like, they're so aware of their image. Like, they're never gonna, it's okay to, fun and games and, someone falls off a cliff, whatever. But when you're talking about that kind of diabolical, I don't think that they have the ability to be that dark in a way
Not
that's gonna
recently,
make
no.
something, yeah. And I could be, maybe I'm overstating that, but I think there is that fine line between like a likable villain and a villain that's just someone that you just like get away from me kind of a thing. And I'm sure that that's probably what they were aiming for.
I mean, it could be, but I mean, like the true villain of this movie is King Stefan, and he's technically is very
Oh yeah.
dark.
Yeah.
Like dark in
But
a way that they haven't done
Mm,
since, I don't think. Because like you said, it's basically an assault allegory.
yeah.
So like he's dark in a different way than Maleficent ever was. Like I think they get away with it by not showing much, and like it is an allegory. It's like not an actual thing. You know what I mean? Like it's not
Yeah,
they're
yeah,
not
yeah.
showing anything explicit or traumatizing to a human, like having her wings removed. It reads as traumatizing to us, but it's not something that like a little kid, I don't think. Maybe
Yeah.
some little kids would be like traumatized, but the way they do it, it's like I couldn't believe that this was a PG movie. They cut around everything in such a way to make it more palatable to families. But like if you think about what is happening, he really is one of the darkest villains they've ever done.
oh yeah.
Yeah, everything to do with King Stefan is very dark. And I think Charlton Copley does a great job in that role as well. He always plays, obviously, these evil characters very well.
That he does.
Um, but he's great here. Yeah, and that final battle's a lot of fun. I do remember a lot of people being very annoyed that she makes Diaval the dragon instead of turning into a dragon herself. I think again because it's such a cool thing,
Mhm.
from the original. Like Maleficent literally turns into a dragon at the end of the movie, and you're like, that is so badass. Like it's part of what makes her such a cool villain in the mythos. And then in this
Yeah.
one, she turns her crow sidekick into a dragon instead of doing it herself. But you know,
Not to foreshadow ahead, but do you feel like that's why they in the follow-up they had her turn into the Phoenix and such?
I kind of wondered that, but
probably.
I don't know.
Yeah, I think they didn't realize people would be as annoyed as they were. She didn't get to be the dragon herself.
I will say though, I did like every time Dioval turned into something else. Like I love like the crow hybrid versions of things that he became.
I think it was a
Like the
really
the
fun
force.
adaptation of her, just kind of a little bit of a throwaway kind of thing from the original. Her crow there
Yeah.
was a really kind of fun interpretation to give her in
Yeah.
the live action version.
Yeah, it was at first it was kind of weird that she would turn the crow into a human, but I kind of like that it gave him a voice and it gave her more of someone to play off of.
Yeah.
Because like until Aurora is almost an adult and can talk to her, she doesn't really have anyone to talk to. Because like none of the creatures really speak English except for the three idiot fairies, and they're preoccupied with trying to keep a baby alive and barely succeeding.
Three-Headed Fairies could be a good rock band.
Actually, it could.
Such a shame too. You get like these great actresses to play these
Oh
freaking
yeah.
fairies too, and you just like completely ruin it. Like you just waste their entire talents on these horrible interpretations of the characters.
And what's bad is this is the better of the two versions of those three characters too.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Not that we're discussing that yet, but
I just think it's funny. We've got this whole review and we almost don't talk about somebody who takes up so much screen time in the original and has like almost no screen time in like Prince Philip in this version. Prince Philip is really just like there in Maleficent.
Yeah, he had such a small presence that I didn't even realize he'd been recast the first time I saw the second
Oh,
movie.
I didn't either.
I love both actors, so I knew immediately. But I love Brenton Thwaites. I think he is very dreamy, but I also think Harris Dickinson is also very dreamy. So I was like, oh, okay, they don't look much alike, but
They don't. I guess it had been long enough and he had such a small role that he just did not stick in my mind.
yeah, that first Prince Philip is like he has about as much screen time as Aurora has in the original animation.
Making up for the lost opportunities from the last one, I guess.
Yeah.
No doubt there.
I forgot too, I was going to mention in talking about all the weird little creatures. Part of me wondered, like, I've never read this anywhere. I had a thought while I was watching. I was like, are all of the creatures of the moors supposed to be like this version's interpretation of all her little goblin minion thingies? The things that like dance around the fire in her castle or whatever. Because like you don't have like a thing in that vein in this movie. So I was just wondering if maybe because like the one kind of looks like a pig and like some of the goblin things look like pigs. So I was just wondering if maybe that was like the original idea. It was like, well, let's make them more forest creatures and then let's try and do more fairies.
Maybe. I
Yeah,
mean,
maybe.
that would make sense generally, I think.
Yeah, I don't know. It was just a random thought I had while watching. I was just wondering.
But no, especially looking back now, I think Maleficent ranks a lot higher on my like live action overall ranking. It's pretty up there amongst what they've given us from this line of films. And I think big part of that again is going back and rewatching it. You know what you're getting. You know you're
Mhm.
not getting a straight up like evil actual villain story. Um and you kind of can disassociate this from the OG Sleeping Beauty and that Maleficent, and you appreciate it more for the story that they decided to tell on their
hmm
own.
Yeah, I think if you go into this knowing that this is just a completely different version of Sleeping Beauty, it's almost like Maleficent really is the only thing that is like truly from the Disney version. Because even though like the idea of the three fairies is from the Disney version, because in most other versions there's a lot more fairies than three. And with these three and their color scheme, that's basically the only remnant from the Disney version. Like everything else, if you just think of it as another version of Sleeping Beauty, it's a much better film that way than if you go in wanting an actual live action version of the original classic.
This is probably a random question, but do you think they'll ever try for like a live action Sleeping Beauty? Or will they stick with Maleficent?
Hmm. Well, if they start running out of other films to
That's
adapt,
what I was just
they
gonna
may
say.
they may circle back to Sleeping Beauty and give us that straight up.
I actually just saw a thing when I was looking stuff up for this. They're working apparently, or it's been announced at least, that there's going to be a third Maleficent movie.
I saw
Really?
that.
Yeah.
I I would have thought that it would be a thing that's no longer happening, but it was semi recently that someone said that they were working on it. So I guess it'll be one of
Huh.
those wait and see things because you never know with so many things come and go and get started and then get canceled with Disney these
Well,
days.
Take
you
about
kind of
half of
wonder
it.
where they'll go.
Yeah, exactly. Well, even with the sequel, like they took it in an interesting direction, but the rest of it just I don't know. We'll talk about it when we talk about it. I will say I think if they went in any certain direction, Diwali is such a he's a cool character. Like I think he's my favorite character across both movies. I could see them, and not that Maleficent needs a guy at all, but I could see them, taking it with them to the next level. Maybe I don't know how you do that, but yeah,
I
I don't
don't
know.
know. I was thinking of like, because like there's a couple scenes with Maleficent and Diaval that it's kind of like maybe they're hinting at something, but I kind of like them as just friends.
Oh, 100%. It's I just if they were going for a third one, that could maybe be a direction because You kind of get, okay, we've seen where Maleficent comes from. Where is she going or whatever. So
Hmm. I guess one thing that I wanted to talk about, because I think this is one, like, depending on the Disney fan, I think one of the original issues that people had with this one was the way that they took King Stefan, and I guess to some extent Queen Leia, because she's barely in this movie. I think she dies off screen. They make some comment about her dying and you never see her again. I think she's dead. So,
it's implied.
like, obviously in this version, he's evil. Did that bother you guys at all when you first watched this?
No.
I was thinking,
I don't think I gave it a second thought. It was just in afterwards hearing people talk about have him being like ruining his character or whatever. But he was never a character that I really
As I
clung
say,
to
I didn't
anyway.
particularly like him in the first one either. I don't know. He's one of those Disney fathers that in some way, I don't know, I don't love him in Sleeping Beauty by any means. I'll just say that. Like he's there.
Hmm.
So, this interpretation of the character is not like this big stretch to me in my imagination. Like I could, sure, that's who he is. I mean, kings in history, a lot of them are actually terrible, terrible people who did
Hmm.
some terrible things, and got, let's call it a nice edit by the history books that was later either debunked or we found out more about them. Um, so pretty much any royalty, you could just tell me, you know what, they were actually terrible. And I'm like, you know what, I believe it.
Yeah,
I'm with Larry on this. Like, I never gave his character a lot of thought with the original. I mean, the focus, as you said earlier, was really on the fairies and kind of the experience of Aurora growing up and then, becoming, falling asleep and all that kind of stuff. So,
I think part of the quote unquote problem, at least that people might have had or thought they had, is just that it was such a different character from the original. It was probably another thing where they went in expecting a remake of the Sleeping Beauty story, and it was a reinterpretation rather than a remake.
I think I would have been more upset if they did that to like Prince Philip. If suddenly Prince
Oh,
Philip
yeah.
was the villain, it would have felt like, okay, we just needed to pick one of the men from the original and make him the villain if they had done that to his character.
Hmm.
But the king is just such a, I don't know, and Disney is also known for not villains per se, but their fathers of the films, like Ariel's father, King Triton and such. We have a lot of parents in these movies that are like, you're not great. Like you kind of are you have some responsibility to bear in the bad things that are to come. So
Hmm.
yeah, I guess I don't know. I didn't really have a problem with Stefan, to be honest. I had more of a problem with the whole stealing her wings thing at first. I definitely was like taken aback, like, whoa, I did not expect this to be our catalyst and like what really divided Stefan and Maleficent. Okay.
Hmm.
But again, just kind of rewatching it, I think it works within the context of the film just fine. It just going maybe I because I did catch on to it and thought it immediately upon watching it was just like, well, I did not expect to go here. Oh,
I kind of, not that I liked that they made him a villain, but I thought the way they did it made perfect sense. And I kind of liked that they had that be the catalyst for her turning evil, not the removing the wings part, but the betrayal by him. I thought that made perfect sense, especially with trying, like, obviously they're trying to soften her character. Because, like, for the most part, with the original fairy tale, she's just mad she didn't get an invite. And I kind of liked that there was something more going on that made her curse the baby.
it's not
well, it would
just
have been
completely
really boring
petty.
if I hadn't.
Just a really petty bitch out here. Like, I mean, and again, that has its merit too, because in the original story, you kind of live for that, you kind of live for
Yeah,
this woman just being like, "Excuse me, I see all the other fairies in the room. Where was my invite?" It's very, dramatic, and you love a villain that's just a villain, just,
yeah.
and that's really, I think that's what really kind of was the catalyst of people being like, oh, we wanted a villain story. Because when you think of villains who are just straight up evil, Maleficent comes to mind. Like, we don't know anything else about her at all. So she's just evil. She's just
Hmm.
evil. in that original Sleeping Beauty. And she's one of the scariest villains, especially when you're young. Her design is creepy. She's scary. She's really intimidating. She turns into a dragon. She has like all of the hallmarks.
Yeah.
So you're turning one of the most just straight up evil villains in all of Disney that doesn't really have a good redemption on the surface into this complex character. It's both a double-edged sword because she is a blank slate. We know nothing about Maleficent. So you could really put any kind of story you want on that character, and there's not a lot to disprove that. You're like, okay, I can roll with that. But then also you're softening her and you're softening one of the most like badass evil villains of your entire line.
Hmm.
Honestly, they've done that with both of them because Cruella is also pretty much just a straight up evil person. And that's the other villain they've chose to humanize. The woman who literally wants to skin puppies for her coat. Like straight up evil, capitalist evil. And that's the other villain. They were like, you know what? Maybe we should humanize her.
Medusa next.
Yes.
It is a thing too, given everything that goes on with Maleficent in this movie. Like she could have been a straight up, witch. And I don't think anybody, as if you look at this as a piece for teens and adults, you could have said, you know what, he was awful, and everything that he got that she dished out on him, he deserved. But
Hmm.
yeah, the I can see why they softened it just to make it more relatable to a wider crowd. But yeah, I agree. I think you do lose something in translation when you take away that edge, or at least as much of the edge as you did, or they did.
Well, the original idea behind this movie, like this movie went through a lot of iterations. It started as an animated film in 2003, but it was because of Wicked. Like somebody saw Wicked and were like, we could do this with one of our characters, and they wanted to do it with Maleficent. So they wanted to like flip the script and do like a whole Maleficent is misunderstood, like the Wicked Witch of the West was.
And that doesn't make a lot of sense. You can definitely see the parallels of
Hmm.
the two properties.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I will say though, I don't think, at least in this one, we'll get into it in the second one. I think that they strayed away from the Wicked parallels in this one because within Wicked, like Alphaba is not evil. It's more of a propaganda
Yeah.
thing that is put against her, like twisting things that she did to make it seem evil. With this one, Maleficent did do something evil. Like she cursed a baby, but she realizes the errors of her ways and makes up for it in the end. So it's not exactly the same as Wicked. I'm kind of wondering if that, like, we'll get to it in the next one, but like they kind of go back to that idea of a propaganda machine against her. So it's interesting that this started out as an idea inspired by Wicked, but then they kind of went back to the original story, but then did more of a twisting it on its head type of thing.
Yeah. You know what would have been cool is if they would have done something like the Harley Quinn series with Maleficent, like
Hmm.
keeping that evil, but I don't know how you would translate that to a wide audience.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely, I understand obviously why, we're conditioned to love a hero's story, a hero's journey, to root for good guys, and particularly within Disney's brand. So I understand why they struggle and don't want to ever go full evil and give us a full villain story.
Hmm.
But dang, do I want it. Like I just I mean, well, that's part of what like really concerns me with Cruella too. Like, that's supposedly in development still. To get to where she needs to go, she's gonna have to turn straight evil. Like there's I don't know. I don't know how we get Cruella post her movie, like the first one, and then to the animated film for sure, Wonder Woman and Dalmatian story, without her just being horrible. So we'll see what they do there. Same thing kind of with Wonka. Like we're doing a Wonka too, and I'm
Really?
like, yeah, that's been
Oh,
greenlit. The first one was good for an origin story, but a sequel, he's gonna have to be a lot darker. Like, we're gonna have to get him to a point where he believably gets to Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory version of Wonka, which is considerably darker. So he doesn't ever become a full villain per se, but we have to really kind of make him not as likable if we're gonna do a sequel.
Well, I mean, you look at the
Um,
history of like really like the classic bad guys. Like, and this is not maybe not the best example, but Anakin Skywalker, the way they took him from Phantom Menace to where he ends up at the end of Revenge of the Sith, like there's such a gap in like those character traits that what he was. Obviously, you're talking cute kid to, full blown, Sith Lord thing, but I agree. I don't know how you make that jump and make it realistic.
yeah. So it'll be, I mean, especially if they do a third one. Again, now they're just going off on their own with Maleficent. Even
Yeah.
in the second one, they just kind of are doing whatever they want now.
Oh yeah.
Um, but I just, part of me always just wants a real villain story. Now, this one, talking a little bit more about Stefan too, getting the allegory of nature, you kind of have to make the king the villain, right? Like if you're going to talk about nature
Mm,
versus civilization, the king is going to be the villain every time. Like whoever the leader is of the civilization that's ruining the nature
yeah.
is going to have to be the villain of your story if you're siding with nature, which, usually you do when it's being infringed upon and like torn down. So yeah, I don't know. I wish they would have kept her a little bit darker. I'm glad they did not go full wicked, like you said. I'm glad they kept her at least putting the curse, because that would have been, I mean, you might as well have called her a new character.
Yeah.
If you didn't have her at least curse Aurora, it would have been like, why is this Maleficent again and not just random witch in a fairy tale kingdom? I don't know, but yeah, once you said it, I mean, and I understand why they would pick Maleficent too. They're almost from the same era, one of Disney's earlier films. They're both wicked witches. And she's certainly easier because again, she's more of a blank slate. So she's easier to give a backstory than say Snow White's wicked stepmother, the Wicked Witch.
Hmm.
That one, we kind of know her motives and we know why compared to Maleficent, who didn't get an invitation. That's very easy to kind of manipulate around.
Yeah. I guess we didn't even talk about Aurora, Elle Fanning. What did you guys think of her as not main character, but like the first side character, I guess.
I mean, I appreciated what she was. I think that she brought a decent balance. She wasn't sugary sweet, but she wasn't, jaded and kind of weird, despite, being raised by three women that didn't know their heads from their butts and, having fallen off cliffs numerous times, I'm sure. Yeah, I think they did a pretty good job with her. Her reactions to things were relatively what you'd expect. So yeah, I think she was well cast. She did well.
Yeah, I think she was kind of in that perfect age to be innocent and look
Hmm.
like this very young princess, but um not so naive, thanks to Maleficent. And I'm glad that they had that come to realization moment and that being a different conflict for her and Maleficent to realize she's the one who cursed her like that. Um, but not making it also, like a nice balance. I think everything with Aurora is a pretty nice balance in this film. She
Hmm.
doesn't do anything to like warrant like best depiction of Sleeping Beauty ever for Elle Fanning. I think she was still a bit young, but I also don't know that the material really gave her huge swaths to leave an impression. I mean, you're here for Maleficent, and she's a good compliment to her. Is how
Yeah.
I kind of feel.
The first time I watched it, I remember thinking that she might be a weird choice, but I was only familiar with her as a kid. And then like at the time I was still thinking of like the original Disney's Sleeping Beauty. So she seemed way too young to me. But watching it now, I liked her. I thought she was pretty good. I thought she was well cast.
I will say, like when I first saw her, and I don't mean this in any way, but I was surprised. Like she's very pretty, but she's not a traditional pretty. I don't think. Like she's got a very unique but good look.
Yeah.
And by what you see in the movie, you don't quite get that. But I appreciated that. It felt a little, not that this could ever be real, but it kind of feels a little bit more real.
Hmm.
Yeah, because once you mention it, the original Sleeping Beauty cartoon, she does read a lot older than like 16. Like she
Yeah.
reads She looks like a full-grown woman. Like that's
Yeah.
a woman in that original Sleeping Beauty.
Yes.
I mean, that's kind of all
Um,
the Disney characters, though. Like,
it's
short of
true.
maybe Ariel, like you do get that full-grown adult woman.
Yeah. So she looks like an old school Hollywood starlet, like in that original Sleeping Beauty, just animated form. And same thing with Prince Philip. He maybe even seems slightly younger than her to me. I don't know, just by animation style, but he also feels like an adult.
Yeah.
So you're right, but I appreciate that they didn't do that for the live action. They realize we need to cast young. Like we need to make this actually feel like a teenage girl
Hmm.
in this situation and not somebody in their mid 20s playing a 16-year-old.
Which is
Yeah.
normally what you get.
Yes.
Yes. So I appreciate it. I also love like once we learned that baby Aurora was Angelina's children because everybody else was too scared. They were like, "What is this woman? Get me away! Oh my
I forgot I was
God!"
going to mention that that baby was adorable. Like I'm not even one who like particularly loves babies, but like that baby was so cute. Just looking up at her giggling. Just the
No, at
perfect
least
baby.
yeah, they got a baby to be like, Mom, just laugh. Like, what do you got on your face? Do you think you would have been scared of this Maleficent if you were a kid watching it?
I don't think I would have been, but this kind of thing didn't scare me because like I would have known it was fantasy. Like I didn't get too scared of fantasy stuff as a kid.
I think I was more hit by stuff that was cartoony more than live action. But yeah, I mean, yeah. I think there's enough, like John said, there's enough kind of cartooniness to it where you don't get like I guess it depends on the kid, but I don't think I would have either, so
Even like the
For me.
final battle, I don't think would have been too scary because they cut around anything. Like it's very violent, and like in watching it, I was like, was this not PG-13? But as I was thinking about it, like they cut around anything really bad happening. Like even the king's death, he falls off the castle and hits the ground, but you don't see the hit. You see him falling, it cuts away, and then you see him lying on the ground from a distance. So I don't think it would be too scary. Like, I don't think I would have been scared. There's probably some kids who would have been scared, but I
It's
don't
a
think it
nice
was
Disney
overall.
staple, falling to your death. And us not seeing. We just have to believe you fell to your death. We
well
see
Yeah.
that way
you
they can bring them
fall.
back whenever you want, you know? You could be
Well, this
like
is very true.
I will say I think King Stefan would probably cause more nightmares than Maleficent would have. Like there's that one
Yeah.
shot where he's coming in, he's got the full iron armor on, he's got the fire behind him. Just that silhouette is so striking.
Yeah. He's like, I still don't think I personally would have been too scared, but like, he would have been the borderline scary part because of how insane he gets. Like, he is like full on insane by the end. So, that to me would be more traumatizing than anything Maleficent did.
Say, I mean, we all watched a lot. Well, I wasn't born yet, but I still watched them. Like the animated films of the 80s. A lot of
Yeah.
that is way darker, you know.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
They were traumatizing children for real. With animation in the 80s and even live action children stuff was dark. So, if this is light in comparison.
It is. Yeah.
Yeah. Disney scaring young people since 1938. Hey John, you'll get a kick out of this. So the actress that was supposed to play young Maleficent was dumped and they decided to go in a different direction with the character. That actress ended up playing Sleeping Beauty in The Curse of Sleeping Beauty from 2016.
I, I haven't watched that one yet, but it is tentatively on my list to eventually watch for the series for every version ever.
Well,
Nice.
it sounds like now you have to.
Yes.
I guess so. Well, I think that's probably about all I've got to say about Maleficent. On the whole, I liked this one. I don't know where it would, like, I need to sit down and think of a ranking. I think it would rank high, but it's still not a movie that I would be like eager to go and rewatch. Like, rewatching it once in a while is fine, just mainly for Maleficent herself, because Angelina Jolie is just perfect in this role. But it's good, but it's still kind of middle of the road for me for the live action remakes, mostly because there hasn't been any that are like extreme, stellar, beautiful filmmaking yet. Not that there ever will be. I have my doubts. We'll see what happens. But like so far, they're not doing the greatest. They're the best you can do is that's fine.
Yeah, I feel generally the same. I think you come for Angelina Jolie. She's the star here. She embodies Maleficent. She gives us a new character to love for Maleficent. And I think that's one of the good things about her portrayal is she is so good that you do end up loving her in the role. So you kind of have two different Maleficents to love. It doesn't necessarily take away from the original by any means. It just gives you a second iteration of the character to really love. Outside of that, it's good. It's I think it's a solid film. It's as me and Triv both said at the beginning. I think it's better than I gave it credit for
Yeah.
initially. And I think it's at least in the top half, but I think it's pretty close to the upper tier of these live action remakes for me.
Hmm.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that it's of the live action ones, it's more thought out. There was actually thought given to how to incorporate those important touch points from the original, but it
Yes.
didn't like anchor itself to them, which was nice. Like you guys have both said, Angelina Jolie is the reason to show up for this. Your other characters are interesting. King Stefan definitely gets his comeuppance multiple times for the things that he did. The worst part about this is those fairies, and there was a lot of wasted potential on what could have been. But given all things considered, it's better than a lot of the stuff that's put out there. And it doesn't feature Pinocchio staring at a pile of horse poop for a more than lengthy amount of time.
High praise.
You know what? That's my new scale. Is this better or worse than Pinocchio staring at horse droppings?
Yeah. What a bar to clear.
Hey, you know what? It's a bar, and sometimes you have to stop at that bar to drink.
I do find it interesting, given the Wicked comparison, that this first Maleficent and Wicked made pretty much the exact same at the box office worldwide.
Really?
They're both right around that, just over $700 million
Whoa.
worldwide box office. So there you go.
Hmm.
Interesting.
Interesting. I suppose it's probably a similar audience showing up for both. People who love fairy tale fantasy with high production budgets and great actresses.
Misunderstood women doing badass things.
What do they say? Better well-behaved women rarely make history.
Exactly.
Well, we will be back soon. We're going to be talking about Maleficent, Mistress of Evil in the next episode. So until then, do you guys want to let people know where they can find you if they'd like more from you, Larry?
Yeah, you can find me over on YouTube at Chili Boy Productions, as well as Blue Sky at Chili Boy Productions, and Instagram, same handle.
And Nikki?
You can find me on YouTube at Trivial Theater. That's probably the best place to locate me. Stop by. There's always something new.
Okay. Well, we'll see you next time for Maleficent, Mistress of Evil. Thanks for listening to Every Version Ever. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe and follow my co-hosts as well. My Linktree and all of our links will be in the description below. If you want more of my content, all my podcasts are available on YouTube as well as most podcast platforms. If you enjoyed this show, check out one of the other podcasts or check out my Patreon for bonus and extended episodes you won't find anywhere else. We'll be back soon with another brand new episode, so thanks for listening and we'll see you next time.